Hey, what's up everybody? Rob here from Ram Studio Comics. Welcome back. So in today's video, I've got a live stream demonstration going of my iPad Pro and the app Procreate. I figured we could do a Q&A on this particular topic. Now we can either color on this current fan art piece that I'm working on with Spidey and Mysterio. I wanted to call him Mephisto. I don't know why. Mysterio. Or we can jump over to some drawings. So I've got either that one or this one here where I was working on probably Spider-Gwen or something. I've just kind of decided it would be Spider-Gwen and talk about some basic posing. So I'm going to let you guys decide. So those are the two options. Those are kind of the two that I've been working on lately. If you know me, you probably know that I bounce around and work on a bunch of different things at once. Oh, ZHC is live too. Okay, well then I'm gonna have some competition here. I'm probably not gonna get all my viewers because a lot of you guys are, so you're on both channels here. So yeah, we're gonna have a problem. And now I'm getting a warning. The stream's current bitrate is only at 1200. It just said excellent connection. Gotta love the internets, man. Anyways, yeah, thanks Cody. Glad you think the glass looks real. It's awesome. Appreciate it. Glad you can be here, Life in Decibel. Ben, glad you're here. Keeman, Zero Soul. Creative way to say Zero Soul. So at any rate, you guys decide. I guess we could wait for a few more people to get in here, but just start chiming in and let me know. Do you want to see some coloring in Procreate on this particular fan art piece, or do you want to see the line art drawing process of Spider-Gwen? Or I'm pretty sure I'm gonna make that into Spider-Gwen. So yeah, thanks Cody. No, I got love for Zach over there. He does a great job. So hopefully you guys are all subscribed to both of us. So yeah, and forgive me if I cough. I'm a little bit under the weather. The joys of living in mid-Michigan. It's season change over here or everywhere, and yeah, I'm always sick. I love it. Yeah, so I got one for line art. I got one that said start with the line art and then show the ink and coloring process in Procreate. I got one for coloring. So we got two for line art, one for coloring. Come on, everybody, chime in. Let's go fast. Let's do this. Line art, boom, then coloring. Line art, okay. I think we're one up on line art. I'm not ready for coloring yet, so that's kind of a line art choice. So we're two up on line art. You guys are going to make me draw, aren't you? I kind of wanted to color, but it's all about the fans or viewers. I don't know if you guys are fans. You guys probably don't even like me. I just want to see drawings. I definitely want to see colors that we're evening up. There's another line art. So I think we're one or two up on line art. So I guess we're going to have to come back to the coloring. And there's another line art. Yep, another for drawing. All right, there we go. Line art it is, you guys. And then color. Yeah, let's just do it all. We'll just do it all. We're doing it live. We'll do it all. All right, so go back to the line art. Now, this is a pretty rough scribbly sketch. One of the things I want to kind of point out with this one, though, because I already started thinking about how I'd present this to you guys as a little bit of a lesson or whatever, is I want to say that it's really important to add these little construction lines. Let me get to my sketch pencil here. Sketching, technical pencil. And so if you notice these little lines here that I got going down the leg, the little disc shapes here, these are really important. I think that what happens is it helps you feel out the space on the page. So especially if you're still a little bit unsure about how the anatomy is going to get placed, or even I guess more the forms, so how the forms might actually look, then you really should do a lot of this kind of these shape, interior shapes kind of building. You don't need to put them as often as that, but these disc shapes are really important, as well as these kind of center lines. And then what happens is you start to remember these kind of coordinate lines almost. It's almost like you're drawing in coordinate-based kind of line work. And it just really helps to build the concept of depth into the forms and the direction in which they take. Because If not, if you're just drawing the silhouette of the arm, you know, you're like, well, I know what an arm looks like, and I'm just drawing the silhouette of it, and I'll get it right. You might, I mean, especially if you're more advanced, you're going to kind of just jump to that, I guess. But in the beginning, we don't really know how to make the forms go the way that we want. So a good way to do this is more of these little construction, like interior line work, interior forms, and these little disc shapes are so important for that. So even though it's just kind of this guess as to, you know, what this disc shape or oval or ellipse might look like in this portion of the arm, it helps me feel out the form, and you know, ultimately helps me get a better idea of the depth and direction of those shapes. So I really recommend that. You know, there's this little trick with the collarbones, the center of the collarbones, and going out to kind of the, you know, peak of the breast or whatever, or right about there, generally gives you the placement of the nipples. So it's just one of those little tricks that you'll see people do when they're drawing these shapes to kind of, again, kind of place that information. And I did this backwards V. I don't know that anybody really does that, but it's kind of another shape that I see right here. You know, you'll see it with a lot of the suit designs, obviously, when you're drawing comic heroes. There's a lot of them have like the V right there. So it's kind of like perceiving even suit designs, you know, like draw these little sketches through the body, and it'll help you with suit designs as well and concepts for that. So I really enjoy the sketching process. You know, the sketching process is the exploratory process of it, and just kind of enjoy that and have fun with it. So let's see. Let me read through a couple of these. I did not know about the nipple trick. Yeah, you gotta know, you gotta learn all the tricks you can about nipple placement, that's for sure. We all got them, folks. They're there. So, but yeah, like, you know, you just have to think about all the little things. Like, another one that's really important. Let me hurry up and fix this face, because this face is like really bothering me. I think it's more the shape of the head. I always start with a very rough kind of starting point of the face and the head. Oh, that's gonna look creepy. Let's make the face really big. Oh, it's too big. But yeah, it's like I start with this boxy kind of representation, and then keep nipping and tucking at it. But yeah, I think it's really the shape of the jawline, you know, because that's one of the things that you got to be really careful of when trying to draw, you know, masculine to feminine. You know, if you've got a really chiseled jawline, then it's probably not going to look as feminine. I guess it could depend a little bit on your style, but generally you're going to want more curvature for, and a pointier chin. So even though I do want some shape to the chin, I'm going to try to point this chin a little bit more. And then obviously if you're doing more anime, the chin gets really pointed. So that facial expression is kind of weird too, so I got to work on that. And then I always have this this hard time figuring out, where do I stop the hair and where do I show the neck? Like they're kind of contradictory or tangents in a lot of ways when you draw this part of the character. You got to be very careful about how you do that. I'll keep soft erasing this back and try to build up on it and figure these shapes out. And since I made it Spider-Gwen, she's going to have, you know, some kind of pulled down hoodie, since it's going to expose her her face and neck area and all that. So the hoodie's going to kind of flip over itself or whatever, fold. So yeah, so like with the neck here, I want this kind of cocky posture, like she's tilting her head back. It looks a bit strange so far, but I hopefully should be able to get it right. I'll have to pull some reference here, but excuse me, bit of a cough. For the eraser, sorry, I'll answer a couple of these questions real quick. So for the soft eraser, I'm just using a soft airbrush. So that's all it is. It's the airbrush with a soft edge, using that as an eraser. Oh, goodness. Cough is killing me. All right, so let me read a couple more of these. I've been drawn for only 6 months. Where do you recommend I start? Maybe with my shapes. Yeah, if you've only been drawing 6 months, you're going to start with gesture drawing if you're trying to draw characters. So, which you're going to start with gestures and you're never going to stop drawing gestures because they're so important. Like for instance, even with this one, I'm kind of struggling with it a bit, but there's a lot of subtleties in this pose that make it look like she's kind of sitting back almost like, kind of in a cocky stance and looking up with confidence, or looking down, I should say, but with a tilted head. A lot of that's gesture. So now if I went to draw this as like just a regular pose, then, like with no emotion to it, or no, not emotion, but kind of expressive behavior to it, then I'd draw her more straight up and the head would be straight and things like that. So gesture is really important. But I think in the beginning, if you're like only 6 months into it, just don't expect your work to be, great at all. You really got to have some time uh, to learn a lot of different things when it comes to figure drawing before you can get out some nice poses and work and stuff like that. So focus on gesture, basic shapes, basic forms, breakdowns of different arm poses, hand poses. It's going to take time. So this chin is really awkward. Yeah, another thing I like to do is almost like what I did with the body. I'll draw a center line down the face, and I'll try to start filling out these shapes because I'm having a tough time figuring out the placement of the chin. So I usually work off the center to kind of figure that out. And I still feel like there's too much angle to this jawline, so I need to put more of a curve there. Oh, I should have this on a table. I actually got my iPad on my lap, which isn't a bad thing, but sometimes when I'm trying to focus and explain things, it's good to kind of simplify the behaviors. So basically have it sitting in a way where it's easier for me to maneuver. And that way I'm not focusing too much on that portion. I just notice it becomes very different from when I'm recording to when I'm just drawing, sitting there, watching the old boob tube or something and just doing whatever. I can generally, not using that part of my brain to multitask. I'm just sitting there drawing and kind of watching TV, but more or less listening to it. So just kind of trimming out the eye here, like doing these heavy eyelashes, because it basically really helps to make the eyes stand out, look a little more bold, a lot more bold. And to go with that cocky expression, I'm going to have kind of the eyebrow down, like that. A little bit of a drop shadow on the iris. And a highlight. The chin is still too low. Weird thing is about moving parts of the face around though is you move one thing and something else looks funny. So you got to kind of either nudge everything around, or you got to be very aware of your proportions. I probably should have did more build up to the face structure. I just kind of threw in the facial features. Kind of one of the drawbacks to working digitally, because you can just move stuff around, but sometimes it makes you forego some of the techniques that you would use in traditional art, where you're just going to map everything out a little more purposefully going into it, because you don't want to sit there and have to keep erasing and redrawing on your Bristol board or whatever paper you're using, especially if you're not using Bristol board, because generally with Bristol boards you can erase quite a bit, but if you're working off something with a bit more tooth, sketch paper or whatever, it gets messy, at least for me, because I use a darker lead most of the time. All right, starting to get there. I'm gonna go ahead and back off, and what I'm gonna do too is allow you guys to ask questions and direct me into the sketch, because you might want to learn something else, like signing the suit or drawing something else. Excuse me. Let me read through these comments real quick. What Sketchings brush do you use? It's just a modified sketch brush. You can get it on my Gumroad if you want. I'll make sure that there's a link in the description box below. I don't know if I can add that right now or just direct you to it, but I'll just verbally say it. It's gumroad.com/Robert Marzullo. So you can find it through my YouTube channel, things like that. But I've got a free set, and I don't even think I have a paid set. I think they're free, and you just donate if you want, but not a big deal. Yeah, and then the next one is, hey, I love your brushes. So there you go. Somebody that is using them and likes them. Thanks for that, Christian. Okay, so let's see, what else? What sketching brushes do you use? Goodness, that's the same person. Okay. The elevation draft table is very comfortable to use with your iPad Pro. Okay, thanks for that. Didn't know that. And what else? Hey, do you know any complex tutorials about head portrait drawing? Free would be the best, of course, but not necessarily. Yeah, I've got a bunch on, like one of my best, or I don't want to say my best, but one of my most popular videos on the channel is about drawing the head and proportionalizing. It's using the Andrew Loomis method and setting up the proportions on the head shape. So check that out. It's right on the channel there. It should be pretty easy to find because it's my most viewed video. But, you know, another thing is get the book by Andrew Loomis. He's you know, fantastic. One of the best people to study from to learn about drawing the head. And I do have course content on Udemy and things like that about it, but I do have a lot of free videos on the channel for you. Yeah, and somebody mentions Proco. Proco's got some great stuff, really good. I think that he's more suited if you're trying to learn like portraiture more than anything. I try to be a little bit more like drawing imaginative characters. So you won't see me use a lot of reference. I use some, very rarely, but a lot of it's from my imagination. So I use things like what he teaches, but more or less in a more imaginative way to create my own characters. So there's lots of different channels, lots of variation of people that, you know, teach this type of stuff, and yeah, lots of great stuff on YouTube. Just check it out. But yeah, like Life in Decibel says, Andrew Loomis's book is amazing. Yeah, and I don't know. Peter the Comic Prince says I have cerebral palsy. I'm not sure if that will stop me from being an artist. I don't know. I don't think it can necessarily stop you. I guess it's all dependent upon your situation, and I can't, without knowing you, I couldn't attest that. You know, I wish you the best. I mean, you got to practice and see if you can overcome certain hindrances and things like that. But I will say that I've met some amazing comic artists over the years. It shows that had different hindrances in life, and some have overcompensated and become fantastic. So you just have to do what you can and see what you can come up with. So I wish you all the best there. So you guys let me know if there's a certain aspect of this you want me to approach. I'll just keep drawing here. I was kind of looking through the comments to see if there was any questions. The only thing I could come up with was the brushes. And like I said, that's just on my Gumroad there. But, you know, let me know if you got a specific question. So I'll just kind of keep doodling here until I see any pop up. How do you switch the sliders to the right? Well, let's check it out. So if you go to, I think it'd be the gear icon, canvas, maybe not, no, preferences, right here. So see the second one down that's blue and to the right? Notice if I toggle that on and off, they switch from side to side. So there it is. That's how you do it. And I'm a lefty, so they got to be on the right for me. So I imagine you might be in the same boat. All right, so let's continue on with Spider-Gwen here. I think that's who it is. Yeah, that's who it's going to be. She's one of my favorite gals in comics to draw. I did just do a comic convention though, and somebody kind of checked me like, "What's up? Why is there hardly any Wonder Woman?" Like, honestly, I don't even know that I had any Wonder Woman art with me, but I've only done a few pics of her, and it really kind of made me sit back and think about who I am as a person. Like, why haven't I drawn Wonder Woman more? And it's so weird because as a kid, I loved Wonder Woman. I still do, but I loved the old TV show. I don't know anybody that didn't really, but maybe not, but it was like one of my faves growing up. And I want to say it was, to me, one of the only ones back then that was really watchable, like, well, that and Hulk, I should say. I loved, the Hulk as well, but, Lou Ferrigno and all that was just awesome. But yeah, so they were like, why isn't there more Wonder Woman? I'm like, man, I feel really guilty all of a sudden. So I'm going to be drawing some more Wonder Woman real soon and full shots because, I'm at those comic conventions and I got to admit that, she Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, however you say her name, that's one of the best movies out there. I mean, that one really, to me, kind of embodied the superhero character and the superheroine, strong female lead. It was a fantastic movie. So, and I was happy to see that because, DC's gotten so many negative reviews with their movies and just can't seem to make movies as good as Marvel or whatever. But that one to me was every bit as good. So I was pretty happy about that. But yeah, then after somebody checked me at that last show, I was at the Flint Comics show the other day, and they were like, "Yeah, you don't got any Wonder Woman, jerk." I'm like, oh man, all right, my bad. I'm on it. I'm on it. Okay, so Douglas, I'm late to the party. Oh no. Yeah, Hulk was good. Like it, the show was, I don't know, it was really well done for what they had to work with. I can't stress that enough. Like they, I don't know, it was just they really did what they could, and it was amazing for what they were dealing with. They had ultimately no special effects back then, no budget for whatever special effects they had. I don't know, but it was just like paint a guy green and throw him in ripped up clothes. And luckily there was Lou Ferrigno, which was massive enough to be the character. I don't know anybody that could have lived up to that. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was massive, but just not the right kind of look and size. Lou Ferrigno was just perfect for that, and yeah, it had some really good storytelling. I mean, I'd have to go back and watch some to see if it really stands the test of time or if it's just my nostalgic memories that are kicking in right now. But I would say that I could still watch that. I really need to. I think I could. I can watch some of the old Star Trek and still be impressed. So that shows you how easy to please I am. And Captain Kirk will always be one of my idols, James T. Kirk. Does that face look weird? All right, now here's the part. Oh, thanks, Pat. Um, let's read through these real quick. Hold on. When would you start a new layer and for what part of the drawing? Good question. Good question, Aguado. So what I would do is something like this would all be on one layer, pretty much. I mean, unless I'm really struggling with something, maybe I find that, I guess that's the thing to think about with layers, like whenever you're really struggling with something. But for me, what I would do here is she would all be on one layer. Maybe the hair if I was really fighting it, but I doubt it. It's really wherever you start to struggle. I wouldn't even do the suit on a different layer because then you got to make sure you're moving them together and grouping them up and stuff like that. I would do the background on another layer. Generally, the way I look at it is like this. Like she'd be the foreground. I would maybe have like some kind of mid-ground thing going on, whether it's some buildings or an alleyway or, you know, whatever. We'll say an alleyway. Let's do that. So let's go back here. Let's say that, you know, she's kind of chilling in an alleyway. Throw in a quick like 1-point perspective, whatever kind of details I see back here. Sidewalk. And then I might do one more layer where there's like the buildings in the very background. Okay. So that would be, that's a really cheesy background, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of how I do it. Like she'd be 1, 2, 3. That's kind of how I look at it. So then I would use layers for that. But other than that, I wouldn't start using layers until I'm inking or definitely in the coloring process. That's when layers get kind of crazy for me by the time I make it through the inking and coloring stage. Excuse me. Don't want to be nagging, but I only find your insing brushes on your Gumroad. You're gonna have to rewrite that. I don't know what insing is. Insing brush? I don't even know what you're trying to convey there. If you can rewrite that, please. Sorry. Face looks good to Mighty Pegasus art. Oh, thank you. Well, here's what I was gonna say about the face. This is what I always do to check it. So I think the face is okay, but a lot of times I think it is, and as I work through it, I start to find fault with it. Like I can tell the pupils are in the wrong place from one another, but here's the funny thing about faces. Let's go over to flip the canvas horizontally. Boom. Instant flaws. There's a big bump on the head here. The cheek line is way too straight, and the jawline is way too square. So weird. Like, I immediately see all these flaws that I just wasn't paying attention to a moment ago. Ah, so weird. I don't get it, but that's what happens. Our eyes get used to looking at something, and then once we flip it, it changes the perception for us. Or something. I don't know. Get rid of the center line now and see if... I mean, it is a, you know, comic character. I could say that she just looks like this, folks. This is just the way she looks, but no, I'm gonna try to make it better. But I feel like even though I'm trying to get this tilt going, it's just not working. So what am I gonna do here? Grab the face. So instead of layers, I'll use selections like this to manipulate the work. You'll see me do a lot of that. But like I said, for the sketch, I really won't worry too much about a bunch of different layers. I'll just keep adjusting and maneuvering. I also feel like the mouth and nose, oops, needs to come up just a little bit. This side of the face a little more. Yeah, the hair feels like really weird now. Like there shouldn't be this big bump over here. And the waist right here, I feel like it needs to come in more. The shoulder feels high. Yeah, so it's so weird. Like whenever I flip something, I just immediately want to start fixing things. Am I alone on this? Anybody else feel this way? Forgot ears? Oh. The ears are covered by the hair. The ear would be back here, wouldn't it? I guess it would be a little bit lower than that. It'd be something like that. Okay, now one thing I would actually use layers for, because I did kind of miss out on something. You guys were saying, um, you know, would you use layers for the sketching process? I will admit, I do this right here. I'll duplicate where I'm at, especially if I feel like I'm getting ready to change something, and maybe it's gonna get better, maybe it doesn't. But then I'll jump back in from this process, and I guess it makes me feel a little bit easier about redrawing something since I've already got that backup layer of it. So if I'm gonna redraw and get in here and try to adjust the face a little bit, I might make a copy of it. Okay. Nice. The brain says, I don't flip my canvas so I won't find all those mistakes. Yeah, I just feel like I have to do it because I know that about myself now. When I flip it, I always see those mistakes. And I'll tell you what else, I have to do it because one of the things that bugs me is when I put my artwork on the table at a comic show, it's upside down to me, right? So I put it on the table, show it to people, they're walking by, and I'm analyzing my table from the other side and going, what, how can I make it prettier, more organized? What's wrong with my table? And why isn't anybody stopping? And then I start thinking about the artwork and I look at it and I'm like, whoa, it's backwards and upside down to me, right? So I'm seeing the flaws again, just like flipping it. So I have to fix it because if not, I'm going to see all those flaws on a table and I'm going to be worried that that's why people aren't stopping to buy my wares or whatever. So yeah, so you got to fix it. Don't stick your head in the sand. You got to fix it. Plus, I think that people that are more advanced than we're at our current stage of drawing, I think they see it more naturally. I mean, think about when you look at your old artwork. You can see flaws that you couldn't see when you were drawing it, right? When you were drawing it, you're like, I'm the greatest artist ever. Why doesn't anybody see this except my mom? So what happens is you're basically, you grow to a certain extent. You look back and go, oh, yeah, now I see where I was messing up on the eyes or the eyelashes or the nose, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, like Jay says, I usually look at faces upside down and make sure everything is correct. So it's flipped left to right, horizontally and vertically. And yeah, it will expose those flaws. But like you'll always hear me say, don't let it freeze you from creating. So for instance, if you keep redrawing something and you're still just not getting it, make it as good as you can for today and move on to the next one. I feel that's extremely important to point out because you get better through time anyways. So but the main thing is that you get completed work into your portfolio, because done is better than perfect. You got to have completed works of art so that you can show your progression. And if you only complete something every few months, then it's going to be pretty hard for anybody to think that you're professional. Like if you're trying to be a professional artist, it's not always that you have to be the best artist. You can be more attractive to a client based on the fact that you actually finish work. Look at if somebody was this like amazing artist, but they can't get the job done, then guess who gets the job? The one that's almost as amazing, but they get their work done on time. So lots of ways you can kind of bridge the gap and make sure that you're still valid in the wonderful world of art. Not always about the work being so entirely perfect. But hey, perfect's great if you can get there, I guess. Like right now I'm realizing I can't even draw perfect eyebrows. Is there even a such thing? I want my character to have perfectly plucked eyebrows. Alright, yeah, they look weird. But again, I'm just gonna move on after this last little line right there. I'm done. Alright, so and I also have one of them. I have two screens going here right now, so I'm seeing it on my iPad screen, but I'm seeing it bigger on my other monitor because of the way I'm recording for you guys. So it's actually kind of neat. It's another way to you're getting two perspectives on the art at the same time. Well, I can't look at them both at the same time, but as I glance from one to the other. Let's read a couple more of these. Okay, I only find your inking brushes on your Gumroad, not your sketching brushes. I think that they're in the same pack. I only have one Procreate set on there, and they have everything in there. So maybe that's what you're noticing. But just look for the one Procreate set, because that's what I'm using today is the app Procreate. Obviously, you probably know that. So there's only one set on there. It's got everything. It's got my sketch brushes in there. And then the brain. I didn't ever finish a piece. I usually just sketch, but then again, I only draw for fun. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And Pat, drawing is lifestyle. You know? So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're doing it just for the sake of doing it, just enjoyment, do whatever you want. Like, enjoy what you do, love what you do. You should love what you do even if you're doing it for work, but sometimes there's a few little compromises in that process. Sometimes you have to draw things that you're not entirely keen on, I guess, or I don't know. I got away from that. I only draw what I want to draw now. But if this starts to fail, what I'm doing, then I'll have to go back to drawing what other people want me to draw. But I don't even take, I very rarely even take commercial work or commissions in anymore because, I'm fortunate enough to be able to draw what I want to draw. But that took me a lot of years to get to here. There's a lot of times I had to take drawing for other people and what they wanted. I mean, I still had my certain things I wouldn't go back on. Like, I don't draw overly evil, demonic crap. I don't mess around with any of that. I don't like it. I'll draw like a evil looking character, but I won't draw any, demonic, whatever. I'm not into that. But some people don't care and they do whatever, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that if that's your cup of tea and that's how you look at things, I guess. But that's one of my things back when I was drawing for people. I just wouldn't touch it. I've even recently gotten things like that where people are like, "Hey, we take this commission." I'm like, "Yeah, think about it. Let me see it." And I see the context of it or whatever, and I'm like, "Nope, not for me." So yeah, so there's different ways that you end up looking at it to make money, and different sacrifices you might make, but ethic and moral things, I don't sacrifice that for money. I don't think I ever really did, and I never really would. Like, to me, it's just not worth it. Like, you draw to express yourself, and if you're gonna make a living out of it, that's cool, but you can't compromise certain parts of yourself just to make some money. You see a lot of it out there, though. Some people they'll draw anything or do anything to make a buck, and I don't know. Money's not that important. Pretty darn important, but it's not that important. And let's see. Just starting my core classes for my degree in a new art school. What advice do you have for fresh artists starting out? That's by Jaya. I mean, you're already going the right way. If you're in school and you're taking some classes, you're doing awesome. What I would say there is maybe really figure out where you're at. And it's tough with art school. I did a little bit of it. I didn't finish art school, and I started, and I was paying out of pocket, and it was like, I didn't know if I would be able to continue it. I didn't really have the money for it. So I just went with books and hard work ethics. But I would not say to take that road. If you have the option, it sounds like you do, to go to school, then by all means, enjoy that, embrace it. That's fantastic. So what I would say, though, is know where you're at. And a lot of times they're going to force you to do a lot of the basic stuff. That's kind of the part I had the toughest part with in school, was they were having me do like a lot of basic still lifes, and I felt like I was more advanced than that. It really wasn't the right way to think about it. I had a hard time taking an instruction at that point, and so it's really tough. So I'm like, I guess I'm giving you the advice of listen to them and take in everything they give you. Be ready to receive all that stuff that you're paying for and that they're going to give to you. don't let your ego get in the way like I think I let mine do. Because now looking back, I'm like, I really shouldn't have thought that way about it, because they have a certain program and a stepping process. And even though it's the basic stuff and it kind of bores you, it's like prereqs in school, they're boring. And it's like, but you should at least take the time there to shine with it and show that you're more advanced, and then keep showing them until they elevate you. But yeah, they were having me do sticks and stuff. Like, hey, draw this pile of sticks over here. And I'm like, what? No, I want to draw people. I don't want to draw sticks. But yeah, that was probably my ego getting in the way. I was still in my early 20s and thought I was better than I was and stuff like that. So I would say you're just on the right track. If you're in school, that's awesome. Soak it up, enjoy it, and yeah, can't wait to see how far you progress from that education, because that's an awesome opportunity. Then another one is it better to self-publish or aim at a career at one of those houses, Marvel, etc.? Also, is it too old to try and attempt a career in your early 40s? Well, I hope not, because I'm 43. So if we're too old, I need to jump out of this live stream and go get a job. No, it's definitely, you're definitely not too old. I mean, come on, people are living longer than ever. I'm shooting for like 120, 130 maybe, if I take my vitamins. No, you just got to go for it. 40's still young. I mean, think of this. Morgan Freeman, this might not be accurate, but I'm going to say it anyways. Morgan Freeman didn't become an actor, famous actor, until he was 40 or something like that. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. But I'm gonna say it's true. And so there's lots of time at that age. And not to mention, art is, you can be a better artist at an older age. It's not like being an athlete where at 40 you better hang it up because you got all these young bucks that are just gonna like really take advantage of you on the court if you're playing basketball or something, or whatever. You're an artist. You can be better at an older age easily. I mean, there's still things that we have to worry about, arthritis and nerves, all those stuff as you get older. But you just go for it, and you try to be your best at your current level and age. And you got to remember too, I always tell people not to compare yourself to other artists too much. Learn from them, grow from them, but don't compare. Don't sit there and go, "Oh man, this person draws so much better than me, and they're 20 years younger." That's just setting yourself up for a problem. Like basically, you don't know the life they lived, and art is so subjective, and there's so many different avenues with art these days that it doesn't matter if there's all these people that can draw better than you or paint better than you and design better than you. There's so much out there. It's a big, big world. So just be the best you can be and focus on what you can control, not what you can't control. You can't control being as good as all these other people necessarily. You can with hard work and all that, but you can bridge the gap. But just be the best that you can be and focus on marketing and promoting yourself. Like, I think one of the things that led to my success is early on in life, I started studying marketing. And I was really big on that because I worked for a sign company and we had to really promote to people. And so I studied how to make flyers, how to market. And I did all this on my own. I didn't do it, didn't go to school, but I wish I could have. I just studied it with books, and didn't even have the internet as like the way it is today. But I knew the value of learning marketing. So I got real into saying, wow, if I could take my art, maybe I can't sell my art for $1 million, but maybe I could take my art and put it on a cool calendar or coffee mug and sell a couple thousand of those to make a living. And I thought that way about it. And, early on, a long time ago, before you even had all this ability to basically do this online now, you can like put your art on so many things online and you don't have all the expenses. I was like running out and like printing stuff and selling t-shirts and stuff way back in the day. And, it was working. I mean, I was getting it done. I wasn't making like big bucks or nothing, but I was surviving, which for me was necessary. And for everybody, it's, for a lot of people, it's necessary until you can get good enough. Once you get good enough, then you can start to, present. You'll get contacted, I think, by the bigger houses. So the other one of like, should I self-publish or should I try to get in with Marvel? The other part of your question, I'm all about self-publication. So I think that you should self-publish before and even after you get into a place like Marvel. So What I say is, don't wait to be great. Don't wait to get that phone call from Marvel, DC, Image. I don't even know if they call anybody, but don't wait for all that. That's silly. That's setting yourself up for failure. What you should be doing is putting out your own book, your own monthly title. Well, maybe not monthly, but your own title. You should learn about marketing that book. So going to shows and presenting it to an audience, getting feedback, hobnobbing with other people that are doing different things in the market. So you go to these shows and you're getting your degree in comics, basically, because you're talking to all these people and they're living it, right? Some of these people, you're thinking, well, maybe they're making it, maybe they're not. Some of the ones that you think are making it aren't making it. Other ones that you think are like struggling are kicking butt, and you learn that by talking to them, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I didn't know that existed. Like, I'm trying to remember one of the instances, but I was talking with another table vendor, and they were getting funded through, what was it? It might have even been Patreon, but it was one of the ones I didn't expect. I think it was Kickstarter, because I just wasn't really aware of how Kickstarter was working for people. And they weren't that big. And they were like, yeah, I've gotten multiple titles funded through there. And we just keep going back, and each time it gets funded. And forgive me, because I can't remember if that's exactly it. But what I'm getting at is, it was one of those stories where I didn't realize it was valid. I didn't realize it would actually work until I was at the shows talking with other creators. And this was somebody in an independent sector. And I'm not trying to brag or nothing like that, but they didn't even have as large of a following as I did. Now, that's that whole comparison thing, and I shouldn't do it. But what I'm saying is, sometimes you can use that as motivation and go, well, goodness, I kind of have this leg up here, wherever. Maybe I'm faster. Maybe I got a bigger following or whatever. Maybe my Instagram's got more hits, whatever. So you can go, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I'm all about that way of thinking. Like, you should look at other people and go, well, I see success in what they're doing. I can do that too, because you can do it. You just have to believe in yourself, and you have to apply it. But the best way to fail is to say that, oh, they can do it, but I can't. You should never think that about yourself, Like, there's lots of talented people out there, but you're one of them because you're doing it, right? So you don't have to think that they got some secret sauce that you don't have. The other thing is, like with, wanting to work with places like Marvel, I think that you have to build your own audience, and you have to show them that you're good enough. They don't just hire people. Not that I've ever heard. I mean, I've never met anybody that was like, yeah, I sent in some artwork to Marvel, and next thing you know, I was drawing Spider-Man. I've heard more than once that they will find you, which I don't even feel like that's the right thing to focus on. Like, you shouldn't even be focused on, oh, maybe one day Marvel or DC will give me a call. You should be making your own book, putting it out there, learning from it, developing your own audience, marketing yourself, and that way, if they never call you, like me, I'm pretty much to the point where I'm like, they're never gonna call. Not to be negative, I've never really put a whole lot of confidence in that scenario. I'd rather be self-made. Like, I'm gonna make it regardless if Marvel or DC calls me. I'm gonna just keep drawing, and eventually I'm gonna get faces that don't look crooked, and I'm gonna get better and better at drawing to where I got my own client base. Like, I got the opportunity from that Impact book deal, which totally sucks now because they're filing bankruptcy. But just if you guys want a copy of it, it's the Learn to Draw Action Heroes book. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. It's all over the place in different stores and things. Unfortunately, the publisher is freaking going bankrupt, which totally sucks. But it's probably some tactics so they can screw over their editor or their authors for a bit and restructure. I don't know, but whatever. It's still awesome that the book's out there. I love going into Barnes & Noble and there's a book that I did. But the reason that happened is because I built up this YouTube. So they contacted me, and I've said this plenty of times. And again, I'm not trying to brag. What I'm trying to do is give you advice on how you can do this yourself. Like, if you put enough of your work out there and enough of your blood, your sweat equity, it's going to come back. It will. I mean, I've seen artists that I don't like their work. I mean, but it's obviously good because they're kicking butt with it, So different strokes for different folks. There's a lot of different styles out there, and how you exude your energy and how you put stuff out there that you are passionate about, that gets people to look and to stay looking because they can see you're excited about it. So yeah, just put it out there. You'll make it. Yeah, sorry, that's probably a really long-winded one on that, but I think that should be its own video because it's so, it kind of relates to where I've been at. You know, like I did for a while there as I was coming up, want so bad. I still want so badly to work with Marvel, but I also wasn't going to chance my success on some phone call that I might get from them or whatever. So I just kept, just draw daily, and I draw the stuff I love, and that's their characters and some DC stuff, just superheroes in general. And luckily, by just doing that, by just doing the work, it turned into a career, and I get to draw superheroes for a living. It's amazing, but I don't directly get paid from drawing superheroes for a living. I mean, I do, but in an indirect way. It's really kind of strange, but if you told me that 20 years ago when I got into comics, I'd say, oh yeah, right. The only way you're going to do this for a living is if you get in with Marvel, DC, or Image. That's the only way. And that's not really it. So, and yeah, Pat, I love Spidey too. It's my favorite character. Yeah, like Black Wolf, you're right. Just keep doing art. Yep, that's the main thing. Just keep making art. Just keep going. Something's going to click. You're going to find your groove. Excuse me again. Any tips or guidelines for where to put the highlights in the eyes and what shape to make them? I always go with these little like square rectangular things, but the main thing is you get the drop shadow from the brow on the iris, and the highlight, if you look at photos, it's almost always right to the bottom of that. Not always, but generally that's where it's at. So that's why you see me, I actually have like this repetitive thing I do for eyes. It's kind of, it's habit forming, so I do it the same way. Thicker line on the outside of the iris from the, this taper right here on the side, and a bigger highlight to one side, a little highlight on the other. Now, keep in mind, if you put this bigger highlight to the left, like this becomes your light source. So you have to kind of remember that, or you do have to remember that, and you got to make sure that everywhere else you shade the character, that the shadows coincide with that. So whenever I start a light source like that, I almost always work out from it, and I might do a glare on the top side of the lip, a glare on the bottom lip like this. So you got to remember that on this top lip, it's actually pointing back and down, right? So it's actually going like this. The bottom lip's coming back out like this. So less light, if any at all, catches the top lip. So you could shade this back if you wanted. I usually just do a little glare at the top line. And then, but here at the bottom lip, you're going to get more of a shadow under the lip. And you're going to put the highlight on the top precipice. I don't know if that's right. The top outermost area of the lip, whatever the word is for that. So just keep in mind that that's what you're doing with your light and shadow. And then as you get down to the chin, you might put, maybe some lines or something. I try to keep the shadows a little bit lighter and airier. I'm making up words today, folks. Just lighter shadows and more, line work to establish shadows on the female character. If you had too many lines or too many shadows, it seems to make the female character not look as pretty, I think. So just my my own style choice there. Same thing with the hair. If the light's up here, you're going to get a light source, something like this, maybe a little bit on this side. I'll make it smaller on this side and more predominant on this other side. So again, I'm thinking about that light source as I move around the illustration. Still feel like this hair shape is really weird. I need the brush to be larger. One person's asking, do I ever ink with the vector tool in Clip Studio? No, I don't really, I haven't messed around with it enough to understand it entirely. I know there's some strengths to doing that, but one of the things that made me not really invest the time to study it was that you can't export vectors, because I grew up being a vector artist for many years. Before I got into doing this, I was a sign guy, and we used vectors for everything. Everything was a vector design. So much so to where I got paid to do a lot of logo designs because, again, you want to use vectors. So when I jumped into Clip Studio and it said, oh, you got vectors, I was so excited. And they're like, but you can't export them, like as an EPS or AI file into Adobe Illustrator or something like that. And I'm like, what is the point? You know, so I just never really put that much involvement into learning it when I couldn't export it. So that's just me. It's just, I was kind of mad that they didn't make them exportable, which again is probably a made-up word. I don't think that you ever say exportable. I should have stayed in school. Okay, so what else? Never was a fan of DC or Marvel. I barely even know superhero names except for most popular like Batman or Spider-Man. I prefer Japanese version. Style is much friendlier. Yeah, you know, like I said before, different strokes for different folks. I like anime. I don't watch a lot of anime cartoons, or it's anime, right? Manga is the comic, and anime is the cartoons. But I love the movies. Like one of them that I've watched over and over again. It's so darn impressive, and based on anime style, I guess anime realism style, is Gantz O. I think it's called Gantz O. Should know that because I've watched it probably 5 times. It's amazing. Utterly amazing. And I don't know, every time I watch it, I get inspired to draw. It's freaking amazing. How did you like Endgame? You know, I'll be honest, I loved Endgame. Loved it. I'm really tough on endings because of the finality that it means of the stories and characters that I know and love. So I'm very skeptical of endings, not generally of beginnings and middles, you know. So I was very skeptical. Still feel like it was just an amazing movie. I don't feel like it was as impressive as everybody lets on, like, because I read a lot of reviews. I didn't read spoilers, and I don't want to do any spoilers here for all you that haven't seen it. But I wasn't that surprised or impressed as based on the reviews I was reading. Now, that being said, I still loved it. It was amazing because it's such a monolithic movie, and all these variables that they had to pull together and tie together and put endings on. So that's not easy. So I respect it entirely. But I will tell you one thing about it. It pulled on my heartstrings a lot more than I thought, okay? I'm not a crier, folks. And I'll just say that I could have probably used a tissue once or twice. And I'm not alone, okay? I saw people wiping their faces as I looked around, making sure they weren't looking at me, wiping my faces. No, so it pulled. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but it pulled on your heartstrings. It really did. That much, I got to give it a high five because, let's be honest, we're talking about imaginary characters here and superheroes and people running around in tights. I mean, it's not that easy to make you feel for these characters in that way. I mean, they've been doing it all along, but this one, they really nailed that aspect of it. They make you feel for these characters. They really do. And again, to me, that's a little bit harder to do when it's a not so realistic topic. Yeah, not realistic at all, right? So it was good, really good. And I love the fact that it was 3 hours and 1 minute. Other than I had to go potty. But other than that, it was amazing. And I was lucky I went and saw it when it wasn't packed, so I was really able to, you know, engross myself into it because I get distracted when everybody's all, screaming and doing their thing. But I was lucky there was only about half of the place was packed. But man, really, I would definitely recommend to anybody you go see it at the big screen. I really would. And I'm not a big screen kind of guy. I wait for everything to come out on video, on Blu-ray, or, digital download, I guess, or whatever, so I can watch it in, the comfort of my own home and have me a couple large pizzas and big old 2-liter root beer, whatever. And I was like, no, I got to see this on the big screen. And I would recommend that to anybody. This is the type of movie you got to see on the big screen. The bigger the better. Really, really. Because there's just so much into it and there's so much detail and depth that I really feel like you do have to see it on the biggest screen possible. What do you think of Brie Larson as Captain Marvel in Endgame? I actually I actually liked her. Like I didn't think I haven't had a chance to see Captain Marvel yet, which is so messed up because I would be basically watching it out of order. But I thought she was good. And when I saw the previews to Captain Marvel, I didn't really care for her demeanor, like her presence related to the character. I just thought, it seems a little over the top, kind of. I don't know. I'm not good at that stuff. I don't know what I didn't really think would be right about her. But I felt like she was the weaker of the cast roles for everybody else. But she surprised me in Endgame. I think she really does fit that role pretty good. So now I'm excited to go see Captain Marvel, which I wasn't at first. I'm like, I don't know. I think that one's going to be one of the weaker of the movies based on the previews. But no, now actually I'm excited to go see that. Let's see. Lego Man saying, wait, I didn't answer your question. Hold on. Let me see if let me see so what app should I use to open your brushes? Well, you should just open them into Procreate. Aren't they saved as .brush files? If not, you got to unzip them on your computer and then bring them into Procreate. So let me know if you don't have a computer, and then I'll have to figure out there'll be a secondary app for you to open a zip file. And you and Eve and John are on the one that started my own YouTube channel. 57 years old, and my art and working on fan falling. Yeah, that's awesome, Black Wolf. And why is it saying $5? Did you just donate or something? That's awesome if you did. I just want to give a shout out to Black Wolf for doing that. You didn't have to do that, but that's nice if that's what that is. And regardless, it's nice to hear that you're saying that we helped you to get motivated on starting your YouTube channel and working on your following at 57. See, that it's never too late. It really isn't. I mean, just go for it and enjoy it. I mean, I don't know. It's whenever people say that, like, well, I feel like I don't get the time to do this and do that. Why not? I mean, if you're gonna be here, do something you love and pursue it with everything you got, and just enjoy what you're doing. I don't know. I'm starting to get to this feeling of like, there's been so many parts of my life where growing up I was chasing money and trying to get ahead financially, and now I'm like, you know what? Even if I made less, I'm doing comics. That's just the way it is. Like, I'll learn to spend less. I'll learn how to save some money and budget better. Because sometimes we think the answer is making more, and it's almost never the answer. Like, you've heard more money, more problems, right? Or more money, more problems. So it's like, it's the truth though. Like, money's great. You got to have it. It's a tool. Like, it's like a hammer. You need a hammer to build a house. You need money to build a lifestyle, whatever. But put your passion in the front seat. Let that drive you. And sometimes more money isn't the answer. It's like, just figure out how to make enough and do what you got to do, and do what you got to do to be happy. All right, let me read a couple more of these. Who's your favorite character to draw? That's Spider-Man. Let's see. Lego Man put my own character, yeah. I know, I should say Blackstone because that's my own character, but I love drawing Spidey. I just do. It's like, I think it is every time I'm drawing Spider-Man or a Spider-Man type character, I'm pretending I'm drawing for Marvel. That's what it is. It's this little thing in my head I do. I pretend like I'm drawing for them, and I try to do as best I can, like I'm going to turn into an editor. But the good part is I'm doing it for me, and the editor's not going, dude, redraw it. That arm sucks. Now, sometimes you guys do that to me. Like, I put something up, and you guys are like, dude, the arm sucks, redraw it. But it's not the editor, so. You only draw in Procreate. No, I've been drawing more traditionally. I draw in Clip Studio Paint, Sketchbook Pro on the desktop, but I do a lot of my drawings in Procreate. Okay, so I'm gonna have to pull up a shot of Spider-Gwen here. Hold on one sec while I set up my screens. And I don't remember her suit design, which is silly because I've drawn her a bunch of times. Spider-Gwen comic art. Googling it. Okay. It's so basic, but I mess it up sometimes. So there's like the spike up the middle. Okay. All right, and let me know if you guys got any questions about the art here. I know I keep saying that, but I feel like if I don't mention it, and if you guys want, I can jump over to that other shot and show you some coloring too. So, you know, you guys are in control here. Just let me know. All right, a few more questions here. Would it be too much to ask you to help me connect the torso to the head? I don't know why I can't seem to get it. Yeah, that's kind of tough because we're already in a couple project files here. We can do that for an upcoming video. Um, but yeah, it's kind of far from what we're doing here. Just try to, you know, pay attention to like life, and when you're doing your figure drawing studies, you know, if you're struggling with this area where you're trying to connect the head to the, you know, this area, right, is what you're talking about, I think, somewhere in there. So look at figure drawing and just draw that area. So just kind of draw this imaginary frame around that area and draw it over and over again with different angles, different photos, and don't necessarily work on recreating the photos verbatim. Do it in your own style and translate it into your own style. But in the future live stream, we'll talk about that, or I'll do a video on it real soon. And yes, I will do another gesture drawing video. I see that comment as well. Hey Robert, I wondered, I live in the Netherlands where concept art isn't really known or popular. What is your advice for someone who wants to become a concept artist, but there's almost no industry? Excuse me, I can't cough in here, folks. Don't think of it like that. Okay, you live in an area where concept art isn't, you know, right around the corner from you, but the internet empowers you to work with people all over the world. For instance, I did storyboards for years. I was able to get in with a storyboard company called Famous Frames and work with them with clients all over the world. They were an agent for me. But if you don't want to do the agent thing or can't get in with those guys because sometimes they're a little snooty, you can just build your presence online, websites, sharing the work, social media, all that stuff, and get your own work, get your foot in the door. Fan art can a lot of times elevate you with companies like that. So you want to practice fan art of the popular characters so that they can see how good you are. So for instance, if you want to be a concept artist, you might do concept art of popular characters, but maybe shift them a bit, but do those turntable styles and digital paintings and character concept revisions, and share that online. DeviantArt, ArtStation. ArtStation is probably the biggest one for concept art. A lot of those guys on there are big in concept art and game art. So don't think that you're subject to your surroundings. That is like 20 years ago. You know, you're not subject to your immediate market. The world is the internet, you know, for marketing with people all over the planet. So you got the internet, just, you know, learn to use that to your advantage. I'm not sure if you answered this already, but do you normally work on Mac or Windows? I'm all Mac based. I use Mac computers and a iPad Pro, so I'm all Mac now. And I switched a few years back. And once they, you know, it's like what they say: once you go Mac, you never go back. I don't know if anybody says that, but yeah, I'm all Mac based now. Thanks, Lego Man. I appreciate that. You said I like your drawing. I do too. Thank you. All right, have you ever been too intimidated to draw a favorite superhero? For me, I absolutely love Wonder Woman, but I'm too afraid to draw her and mess her up. Yeah, Tania, forgive me if I'm not saying that name right. But yeah, I've actually can relate to that with Wonder Woman. Like, I think that's why I've drawn her less, and I absolutely love the character, but I don't draw her as much. She is tough to get right. Superman is a tough one for me. I draw him because I'm trying to like get past that hurdle in my art, but he's very easy to not get right. Like, he's just got a very definable look that you can mess up and not get the nobility in his look, you know, like the impressiveness of that character. So, or I just think it's like this, since he's so ultra definable or known or branded, I don't know what you want to call it, but just you know it when it's Superman. So you also know it when he's not drawn right. So for me, it's a character like him. But I look at that like a challenge and a welcome challenge. Like you should look for those things within your art and strive to overcome them. So that's what's going to make you a great artist. So don't be worried about that when you notice that about your work. It's like, for instance, I struggle to get faces right. I mean, I don't know if you guys like this face, but I still see flaws with it, and I'm going to keep picking at it until I get it right. But I can't shy away from that too much, or I'll never get it. You know, I'll never get it right. So if there's a character you can't draw, go for it. Like one of the things I can't draw, and it makes me so freaking mad, is dragons. I struggle with dragons, and I love dragons. Like I think I literally started watching Game of Thrones because there was dragons. Like, so I love the look of them and all that, and I can draw them better in profile, but I always struggle to get the look I'm after, or that I think I'm after, when I draw them and paint them. And it's just, they're not as good as I want them to be. So I keep revisiting that, you know, here and there, but definitely one of those things where I get ready to draw it and I kind of tense up. I'm like, why don't I do these right? What am I missing? So just keep at it. It's a good thing when you find a chink in your armor so that you can improve where you're at. Man, these questions are coming in. I'm not getting able to draw a whole lot here, so I hope you guys don't mind. Back when you were in your 20s, did you feel frustrated with your art? I often struggle to even finish my art due to having thoughts such as having a dispensable art style. Dispensable art style. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, in my 20s, I thought I was way better than I was. Looking back, I see that now. I thought I was amazing, and I was just waiting to get found. And now, when I look back at those pieces, I see a lot of excitement that I put into that work. You could tell I was passionate about it and energetic about it, but I lacked a lot of fundamentals, things that I still lack to this day. So I think that a big part is that you just try not to get too egotistical. You know, think about it like this. You can't fill a cup that's already full, right? So I see this a lot with artists. Like, they think that they're better than they are, or they just don't practice things that are obvious. So the way that you do this is that you ask somebody to look at your work and tell you what they see, but you have to be receptive and ready to listen. So you might need to work on your gesture, your forms, your shading, whatever it is. But if you don't ask somebody better than you, and you're not ready to take that information in, it'll fall on deaf ears. I always say deaf ears. So you have to be ready to receive that information. So the main thing is just practice a bunch and ask for that constructive criticism. I think that when you're younger like that, in your 20s, you just think that everything's kind of there, and you're like, why isn't it happening? Why am I not good enough? But when you say a dispensable art style, I'm feeling like you're saying like it's not recognizable enough or not interesting enough. And if you feel that way, it might be that you're reaching too much for something that's not you. Because ultimately you should do you, right? You should make what you feel is good art and what you're really after. Sometimes we compromise too much and we say, well, I want to draw like Jim Lee. I want to draw like Mark Silvestri or these big name guys. So we start to pursue being that other person and mimicking them too much. And that's like it's a short road. You can't do that. Like, you need to learn from them, grow from what you can see by their work. They're making decisions for a certain reason. They've grown to be that person. But you ultimately have to create your style and your vision. And that's hard because, you know, you keep looking at this other stuff and going, wow, that's so amazing. I'm so impressed by it. That's the way I need to be drawn. When in all reality, there's bits and pieces of that you should learn from, but you should be doing your own thing. You should be reinventing a new style so that you're not just a carbon copy of somebody else. And I've struggled with that because I study those guys so much because their art is just so flippin' amazing. But we don't, I heard Todd McFarlane say this one time, because I love that dude's work, and he goes, we don't need another one of those guys. We already got that guy. You know, be your own guy. And like, it just made sense. Like, you know, you don't need to be that next Jim Lee. I mean, you could do that, but you're never going to be better at being Jim Lee than Jim Lee is, right? So do your own thing and pursue that. And that should hopefully give you some energy to finish your work, so that you're, I don't know, it might just be you're not finishing your work because you're not going into it with enough narrative in your mind about the piece. I find that with myself. Like, if I don't truly know what I'm after and I just start drawing on a canvas, I might lack the energy to finish it. But if I go into it with a lot of ideas, inspiration, a mood board of images, and an idea concept, then I'm a lot more likely to finish it because I've invested time and energy into the narrative, the idea of what I'm going to illustrate. Excuse me. I need more coffee. Hold on. I have a cup of delicious Big B coffee sitting right here calling my name. And this message has not been sponsored by Big B Coffee. I wish and hope one day it will be, but maybe not. If that stuff was free, I would probably go off the deep end. Okay, so where do you go looking for inspiration for your art? I read comics. I go watch Avengers Endgame. You know, it's like, and there's so much great inspiration these days. But I'll tell you one that I don't talk about as much that I think is very important is spending time with family, going places like vacationing and taking trips. You know, and don't make the excuse, oh, I can't afford it. You know, I can't afford to go cool place. Yes, you can. I'm talking, you can go for long walks in some woods or something, you know, somewhere scary. But like just go places and like walk around, take in some nature. Like sometimes we get so caught up in staring at this work all the time. And I feel like if you do that, you're going to eventually just get ultra bored, or the boredom is going to seep through into your work. So you have to like take some breathers and go find inspiration and just like straight up nature and seeing the world around you. It's just like, you know, reference, right? Like you want to gather all this reference, all this stuff for your visual library. You should have it. Your phone takes pictures. I mean, everybody's phone takes pictures these days. You should be out there snapping shots, all the stuff that you want to see in your work, and then running it through your translation of your drawing process, and you know, creating stuff with it. That can be inspiring. But I just love like comic book movies that are coming out left and right. I've been back into reading comics more. Been trying to pop into my local comic shop and support them and buy a book and, you know, flip through some for free before they kick me out, things like that. So just, yeah, Barnes & Noble. I love going there and flipping through some of the big graphic novels. And, you know, I've even got to the point where I just bring a little bookmark with me. So that way, if I put it back, I know where I left off. So when I come back the next day, it's kind of like a library experience. So they love that. Just don't start highlighting. They get mad when you whip out the highlighter. I've noticed that. Ticks them off. Wait, Robert, question with sketching. I shouldn't try to sketch like you? No, you should to learn. And like when you're talking like my sketching videos where I show you how to sketch something, it's okay to sketch along with someone. Like I came up on Bob Ross, right? Like I was trying to paint, well, I wasn't painting, but I would try to draw the stuff he painted basically. But just watching the guy is amazing. You know, I still watch him. So like, it's okay to work along with people. That's a fantastic way to learn. But you want to try to develop your own style as you go. And that just means experimentation. So you're going to get your style just from experimenting, you know, not from copying, I don't think. I mean, you can definitely gain bits and pieces from everybody. I think we're all kind of a combination of the people that we admire and aspire to be, but you just don't want to copy one person and everything you think they're doing, because you don't really know what they're doing. You're copying from an outside perspective. So I think it can do more damage than good. And like I said, even if you did really great with it, you still just end up being a copy of that person. So it's not really going to suit you, you know, long term, I don't think. And that's things that I've learned from other, you know, I've read and learned from other artists as well. That's not entirely me talking there as well. That's like I said, I heard that from different artists that I admire, and one of them that said that was McFarlane. And one of the things I really always liked about his style was it was very ultra expressive, like almost borderline of areas where it just looked like he was reaching or something, but not reaching, almost like he just didn't care. Like he's gonna put style and energy in the front seat of what he does. So his work had a little bit more of a energy to it and a neat storytelling in the artwork that I thought, I don't know, it always appealed to me anyways. So I just think that that's important. It's very easy to get too stiff with our creation process. Like I even feel like this character, even though I'm trying to make her look a little bit more laid back in the pose, she still feels stiff to me, you know? So that's one of the things I struggle with that I have to keep trying to do a little bit better with is how to loosen up the work and be a little bit more um, animated with the style representation, you know, the stylization of the concept. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to copy this again just so I can soft erase. Now, let me say this. We're already coming up to, yeah, I'm probably going to have to close this off in a bit. But we'll go for a little bit longer. But do you guys want to see me keep sketching on this, or would you like me to show you a couple things with the coloring process? Benjamin saying, who would you say your Udemy courses are for? Beginner to intermediate. I've had people say they seem advanced in some of them, but I think they're beginner to intermediate. I try to teach them in that way, but I do try to add some advanced things in there by the end of each course so that, you know, you feel like you can stage your work up and get to that next level. Because I always look at art like it's you're leveling up, basically. I would say for a broad audience, but I do need to do a course where it's basic drawing. Like, here's how you draw a circle, here's how you turn that circle to a sphere, here's how you introduce a basic light source, some very basic primitive concepts, because I've had people say that, you know, they're still at that level, and then they feel like the courses might be too advanced for them in that regard. But yeah, if you guys want, let me know if you want to see me keep doodling on this or do some coloring. And I'll just kind of, this one is kind of tough because I keep having to cycle over to images to check where I'm at. But at this point, what I would do is start doing the light source on the suit. So for instance, you see me kind of do that on the legs. I'm picturing that's where the light would be. And let's see. Yeah, so the whole lower portion of the suit. Oh, and there's these kind of segments that come down like this. Little points. And the rest of this is all dark. So what you can do is just kind of keep picking spots. This is going to kind of make her look like she's got a bit of a belly. But that's basically a light source. And then same thing over here. Might put a light source like this. I don't know if that looks right. Let me soft erase this first. We got too many lines everywhere. It's a little confusing. Now I can do away with all these little sketch lines and think more about light and shadow. Time to relax and sleep. Well, must be nice, Pat. Thanks for rubbing it in. I still got another 8 hours of awakenedness. Oh, and color? All right. Yeah, we'll switch over to color here because I'm going to have to close this off. So I'm going to let you guys ask a few questions about the coloring process, and then maybe we'll come back and revisit this one, or, you know, check back and I'll post the finished work or the time-lapse video, because you got to remember the neat thing about this app is it's actually recording this as we're live streaming and drawing it. So pretty cool. But yeah, as far as the light source here, I'm thinking, you know, we got a light source kind of coming down like that. I'm thinking a little bit of a glare on the top. I'm kind of struggling like where I want to put that glare. And I see, here's the thing. I have a tough time with this because the easy thing is like, well, just put like 2 big circles for a glare. And that's ridiculous. So then I try to change that shape, come up with something else. So yeah, I kind of struggle with where to put the light source. So a lot of times you'll see me do this where I add a layer beneath it. Pick like a medium blue to a gray. And then I'll pick a painterly brush. And I'll actually paint in where I think the shadows would be. I don't know why this helps me, but it just does. So you'll see me do this a lot, even with my line work. Definitely with my digital painting, but I think that's what kind of started making me do it because I start painting this way and it seems to make the light source a little bit easier for me to understand. So yeah, this is why I do it. Like for instance, all this will be in shadow or inked in later. And you can try different shapes of brushes. I think that helps. Stuff up top is lighter. What's our arms on this? Do you mind if I share this on Twitter? No, go right ahead. Yeah, so we got a couple for coloring. We'll switch over here because I won't be able to do this much longer. So I want to give everybody a little bit of what they're after. We'll be doing more sketches real soon. Yeah, and all the top portion of the suit is lighter, so I would fill this all in darker. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this because I kind of feel myself struggling anyways. And I really hate to struggle in front of you guys. Supposed to be helping you, not struggling. Like the whole swimming thing, I can't save you from drowning if I'm drowning myself. Okay. Yeah, let's switch over to color for a minute. All right, so we'll go back to gallery and back to Spidey and Mysterio, who I keep wanting to call Mephisto for some weird reason. And one thing I thought might be kind of neat here is what I do is I typically flood fill the area first. So for instance, let me pick this building to the back and just show you a quick technique for this. Where is it? Not this one. I got all these buildings on separate layers. So this is where I start getting layer crazy. I guess we could work on that one. Yeah, we'll do that one. So what I do first is I isolate that color, that layer, right? And then I lock transparency by doing a 2-finger swipe to the right. And you'll see it do that little checkerboard thing. I'll zoom up on it. And I like to two-tone a lot of these. So what I'll do is I'll pick just a different earth tone type color. A lot of buildings are like earth tones or blue grays and things like that. But we'll just go with earth tone, just keep it easy peasy. And then I'll pick a inking brush because it's solid. Make sure this is all the way up for the opacity right there. And then I will pick the trim areas. So for instance, on this, like you see what I've kind of already been doing, and I don't really want this to be overly repetitive, but I'm going to do that anyways, just because I want to show you the process that I kind of use for this. So I'll get in here, I can go past this. I'm actually drawing right past that other building because it's behind that other building, so it's not interfering. And then a couple things you can do here if you're going over the lines like I just did there. You can actually click and draw, hold it. Oops. Click and draw kind of straight because now it'll snap to a straight line. You can pull that right to the edge of the line work. So that's one way you can kind of, color in pretty quickly. You can also do some other things, but I'm just going to do this by hand real quick. So I can click, draw, hold, snap, that. And what I'll do is I'll do the front side of this edge here. Now you can do this on a separate layer, but for this case, I'm not going to. I'll show you why here in a minute. I just feel like there's so many things you can do without creating the additional layers. And what happens for these scenes, you start to get a lot of layers. And if you're working at a high resolution, in this case I'm working at 11 by 17, 300 dpi, you got to be kind of careful, because one of the things about Procreate is the more resolution you have, the larger file, you start to only be able to use so many layers. So just keep that in mind. If you need more layers going into a piece, you might want to purposefully use a little bit smaller file size. And file size relates to inches and resolution, not one or the other. So all of it together. So you got to basically look at it like if you're doing a 300 dpi, LPI or DPI? DPI, I think. But 300 DPI file, then you have to be aware that you might not be able to use any more than maybe if you're not able to get away with 11 by 17, you might have to use like 8.5 by 11, and or actually the proportions of 11 by 17, but smaller. So what happens is each time you jump down a little bit like that, yes, you're going to lose a little bit of resolution, but it's still going to be more than adequate, especially digitally, because the output of these files are so clean. A lot of times at the end of it, I'll actually dull down the quality because it's almost too crisp. And in fact, I do that with every piece now. I blur it right at the end because it's actually too crisp and too, you can see if I zoom up on this, you can get in there pretty tight. I mean, you just start to see the imperfections, all the lines, because we're up so close. And also, you know, it's an image like this, so you don't want to be that close anyways. Okay, let me get in some of these base colors, something like that. I'll just do that, and then I guess this little piece right down here. And you see I got a few little flaws here and there, but I go back and touch up a lot of this. Okay. What size do you normally use? Yeah, so I kind of mentioned that. It's 11 by 17 at 300 dpi. Let me see if this tells you under canvas information. I'm going to tell you the amount of time, which is crazy. And that's just the color, by the way, folks. So don't think this piece only took me 9 hours, because it actually took a lot longer. Yeah, 11 by 17, 300 dpi, and then it shows you the amount of layers that I can have. You can see I'm almost at my max. So that's one of the reasons why I paint some of this stuff together. So I'll put as much of the two base colors, the flats in a sense, on this same layer, so that I don't introduce too many layers. I'm going to do something like that. And then one of the things I'll do is I will now select, remember that we have the lock transparency to the edge. So I can't go outside of the confinements, no matter how hard I try, right? So the other thing you can do here is you can take your selection tool and you can select point by point right through the line work. This, move it. I can go right through here because it doesn't matter since I've got the perimeter locked. The lock transparency makes sure that I won't go outside of that. But I'm just isolating that part of the layer, and I can go into here to like hue saturation, and I can make one side darker. So something like that. It's probably too dark. In fact, I think I need to lighten up the whole thing first. But I'll go ahead and go with the darker like this. Not a big deal. So what I want to show you there is that just like that, you can establish your immediate plane change of the work. Now the other thing is this, I'm going to go back with a 2-finger tap. It reselected where I was, right? If you hold the selection tool, which looks like that S that's highlighted blue, hold your finger for a couple seconds or a second, and this bottom toolbar pops up. I'm going to click invert. It's hard to see, but it actually inverted the selection. I'm going to go right back to that hue saturation, and I'm going to brighten up the other side. So I really don't like that, but what I want to show you is that while you're here, you want to take advantage of your selections as you implement them. So sometimes you can save a lot of time by just flipping it and then utilizing it. So while it's still selected, I'm going to go back to the brush. I'm actually going to set it back to the darker, but I'm going to go back to the brush now, and I'm going to go to airbrushing, and I created a highlight brush. Now this is just a basic soft airbrush. The only thing different is I leave it set to add under the blending mode under general. Now the reason why is because I don't like to have to change that all the time. So I created one that's set to multiply, one that's set to add, and I can just go back and forth, and I can quickly brush in my shadows and my highlights. So now with the same lighter kind of tan color and a big soft highlight airbrush, I'm just gonna hit a little bit of the top here, okay? And really what I'm trying to do is I'm actually just trying to get this top side, not the top middle, but it's gonna hit that top middle. That's okay, and I'll show you why here in a second. So I'm gonna hit that. Now I'm gonna deselect this area and kind of spin this around. And I actually don't want this top to be the same color. I'm gonna grab my selection tool. I'm gonna use the line work to aid me in the process, basically. Go right through here. I get a little messy on this one, but it's all right. All right, so now I'm actually gonna go back. I don't like that highlight that I accidentally introduced. So I can hold my finger over that brown, reselect it, and go to a normal brush, which would just be the soft brush for me, and I can fill that in. Now the other thing is this, I don't want it to be the same brown. It's too repetitive and boring. So what I'm gonna do is go into here, hue saturation, and I'm gonna desaturate it. I'm gonna play with the light and dark, and I'm probably gonna introduce a little bit of texture into there. Now, I think actually I should have deselected the building. Yeah. I don't know, actually, let's go back. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave them gray at the top, because again, I don't want this overly repetitive behavior, even from building to building, because it becomes silly because obviously the buildings aren't all built the same way. But I'm gonna add a texture into that gray with a little bit lighter kind of stippling, and that'll make it look like a rooftop kind of material. So I like textures in a lot of this stuff, and that comes at the end, but I just want to explain to you my thought process. Now the other thing is this, as you've got this area, this building isolated, you can just take like a solid brush, let's say an inking brush, and let's put it to a gray. And let's even set this to multiply. Instead of normal, we're gonna go to multiply. And the beauty of this is that when you go over a certain color, it darkens everything respectively. So you can really do this a couple ways. You can either do it with multiply and or with just the opacity. But see how you can get that nice plane change right there? It's real easy to do. And with a solid brush, the only thing you have to make sure of is that you don't, well, I should say a solid brush with opacity turned down and multiply. You gotta be careful not to keep doing the pass over and over because it'll darken with each overlay. You either have to select this area or you have to just carefully brush in here all at once. And as long as you don't pick the pen up from the surface, you can fill it all in. But as soon as you lift up and hit it again, you're gonna get a dark spot. So just be aware of that. But all I'm trying to do is establish a little bit of a plane change from that top surface to this side edge. And that's really kind of my thought process throughout the whole thing. And as I'm doing, excuse me, another cough there. I'm not gonna make it to the end of this live stream. Like kind of do that here and there, like a drop shadow there. Another quick tip for drop shadows is like draw all the way across, hold it, let it snap, drag it into place, and let go. And you get a nice little drop shadow that's not even, but it should have been. Let me try it again. So focus on the pressure of the stroke because that's the part that is going to kind of show or shift. So I'm kind of messing that up, but I'm going to try again until I get it right. And then drag it into place and let go. And boom, drop shadow, free of charge. Now, and I'll do that on the windows too. So the windows are actually this entire blue layer in the background. You got to remember, windows are really just reflecting the surroundings. So you could start off with a pretty basic environmental lighting, basically. Let me see. Somebody asked questions here I'm missing. Is the iPad Pro good enough for professional work? Definitely. I use it for most of my work now, and a lot of my images, if you go to my DeviantArt or whatever, client work I've used it for, a lot of them are basically finished completely with the iPad Pro. I might do a little bit of retouching in Photoshop, but it's getting more and more rare as I become more and more confident with this device. So yeah, you can definitely do finished quality work on here, I believe. But other people are going to probably object to that. I don't know. So what else do we got here? Draken. Hello, R. I have a question for you. What's some advice for starting comic book artists? Main thing is just get out there, create a book. Even if it's not a full book, create some small zines or pamphlets, fold over sheets of paper. I don't care. Just make comics. Like get out there, make them, and do some of your own printing. Like you go to those little self-print shops, make your own little comics and distribute them. The reason being is you get so much valuable feedback from people when you actually make them, and you learn what it takes to make a comic. A lot of people think they can make comics. I thought I could make comics until I started actually doing them, and I realized, wow, this is harder than I thought. I was a little bit egotistical and thinking that I was better than I was because I could draw a few pretty pictures, so why couldn't I make comics? Making comics is actually pretty darn hard. It takes a lot of diligence. You got to work hard to get a book out. Why do that's why you see teams of people working on comic books. I mean, it takes a pretty badass artist to be able to pencil and ink a book on their own, much less, pencil, ink, write. You know what I mean? It's like only a few artists, writers ever do that. So I don't know. You just have to make them. So start small, start with a few pages, make them, and grow from that experience is probably the best advice I can give to a new aspiring comic artist. What's your advice for someone who is pretty new to art and wants to improve my skills in digital painting and sketching? From Emil. Basically, on that, I would say that you just have to work every day. It doesn't have to be long hours every day. I mean, I do recommend long hours every day if you want to be really good. But you just have to make sure that you do it every day. So don't sit around and think that, oh, no wonder I'm on the wrong layer here. Don't sit around and think that if you draw a couple hours each day or once a week you do a full day or something, that you're going to be amazing. I mean, maybe you get lucky there. I don't know. But to me, skill is built through, that 10,000 hour rule, like you got to do it a lot. You got to be diligent. You got to do it every day so that basically you start to see things differently. You start to pick up on things. Like for instance, now when I go places, I'll look at something and I'll go, oh my God, I got to draw that window real quick. Or I got to take a picture of that window to that building. That's a really great window. And, my girlfriend's looking at me like, are you crazy? What are you doing? Why are you taking a picture of a window? It's like, it's because I'm like harnessing stuff. I'm like trying to get all this collective knowledge together that I can put it in my pictures. And so you start to pick up on textures and, lighting scenarios and all this stuff. And I don't know, maybe I just wasn't that keen to it. But once you draw every day, I think it just starts to happen. Like that's just part of it. Like you start to really perceive the world around you differently. And I think that's important. So draw every day and take breaks too, though. Don't think that if you're drawing so much to where you get bored and you can't draw as well and you can feel that, like a lack of inspiration and motivation, take a break. Go do something else. Take a walk, take a breather, take a few days off, then come back. That's important as well. So, all right. I think that's it. Did I get all the questions? I gotta go for now. See you later, Keeman. Practice every day, every single day. You'll thank yourself in a year. Good call, Jaya. I don't know what's. Okay, I don't have much time, but I plan on doing a lot over the summer. I just want to practice the right way as well, so I don't waste any time. Yeah, and I know that's a tough one too. Try not to think of it too much like that. I mean, yes, you want to be conscious of the way that you spend your time and anything that you do, but there's also a different side of that where you start worrying too much. Just try not to attach worry and anxiety to your art. It's easier said than done, but basically creating should be fun, and that should really kind of direct you and be inspired. And when the imagination kicks in, when your ideas start to flourish, you're on the right track. So let that guide you instead of like constantly seeking out the exact right thing at the right moment. I think it's a little bit more of an organic process than that a lot of times. But I'm a big believer that you should attack your weakest link as well. So when you look at your work and you go, man, my backgrounds are horrible, what do? You go for that. You're saying something to yourself. Or when you see another artist and their backgrounds look amazing, then there's a reason why you're seeing it like that. You should study from that person, maybe, you know. And so, like, I don't know. It's tough to say when you should do what without, you know, say being in a course curriculum and studying at a school or something. Yeah, and again, good advice by Jaya. Even doodling is good. Doodling is fantastic. It frees up your mind. You're still focusing on your mechanics and your hand-eye coordination, your repetitive textures and things, but or maybe sometimes not so repetitive. But doodling is great because it like just allows you to be creative and let go of all the rules that you think you have to abide by. Nice. Zetman says, I saw boobs in the thumbnail. Where are they? They're in the previous sketch. We switched over to the coloring because, everybody said they wanted to see some drawing and some coloring. So is drawing 3 to 5 hours a day enough to level up? I wouldn't say for me, but I think that's, again, kind of different for everyone. I think that it might be good enough. It's a tough one to say. As far as an exact time, we're all very different in the way that we create and how much we might excel. I know that when I was going to school and working, that's all I could squeeze in. So I wouldn't say it's not, because I don't want you to not do it based upon if that's all you have time for. But I feel like if you're truly trying to compete with the pros or something, you'll have to find more time than that eventually. One of the things I think can be important, you got to make sure this doesn't come back to bite you either, but one of the things that can be important is to find a job. If this is your situation where you're actually not allowing yourself enough time to create because you need to pay the bills and you work a job that's unrelated, I would really recommend that you find something that's similar to what you're trying to do, even if you have to make a little less money. That's just me looking back. I would have did more of that. It's kind of what landed me into signs and graphics, because I was like, well, at least I'm creating some kind of art, which was true, but it wasn't comics. I mean, occasionally I'd have somebody want me to draw a superhero kind of thing, but I wish I would have just apprenticed at somewhere where it was comics, even if it wasn't Marvel Comics, but maybe another smaller comic company. But it was tough back then for me to find any work that was paying anywhere near significantly enough for me to keep going forward. But yeah, I would definitely try to combine those if you can. That's why you see so many people that will apprenticeship or take co-op work programs to a place that's, similar to where they're trying to be in the end result. Actually, I don't like how I just colored those windows. Let me take that back. Okay. So yeah, unless there's some immediate questions, I'm gonna have to jump out of here. We're going up on almost 2 hours, and I've got to pick up my son here in a little bit. So I don't want him standing out in front of school going, "Where's my daddy?" That would suck. Never happened, by the way, and it never will happen. I was just trying to make a little bit of a pun there. Okay, so let me read a couple more of these and we'll bring it to a close. Now I've been learning to draw since I was 22, on and off, and that's like a year and a half ago. Thing is, I usually don't know what the heck I should do. I learned things like organic sketching or perspective. Yeah, so you might do better with a script. You might want to find a script if you want to draw comics. If not, I always tell people, like, you should sketch in your sketchbook every day, but you should also work from some kind of narrative every so often. If not, you can really kind of back yourself into a corner. Even me, like, I draw what I want, I draw the characters I want. You guys tell me you want to see, so I draw my own vision of that and I share it. That's great. But every now and then, I actually will look at scripts and try to draw a scene. I'll try to draw my own comic Blackstone and draw from my own script. And it's important, because if not, you just kind of fall prey to this thing of, I'm going to draw whatever I want, whenever I want. And later on in life, that might work out for you. But in the beginning, you kind of have to treat it like a job. Like I always tell people, if you want it to be your job, you have to first treat it like it's your job, and then it will become your career. But you can't just kind of pinball around and hope for the best. When it comes to becoming a specific thing, if you want to be an illustrator for comics, then you have to find scripts, draw from those scripts. I wouldn't really recommend working for people for credits. Some people do that, but that's a way to kind of implement that, where you say, hey, well, at least I'm getting published, you know, but I'd make sure there's always some kind of pay on the table. But that's a good way to hold yourself accountable because they're going to give you a script. You're going to work from that script. But if your end result is just to have fun, then doodle, draw whatever you want, have fun, and don't worry about it. So you got to think about where your next step is and where your end game is. End game. That movie was awesome. All right. Now the thing is, sometimes I just do something like try to draw a figure, and it's pretty beyond what I could have expected. I mean, I didn't know I could do it. How do I bridge the gap? What are you saying though? You're saying so you draw something cool that you didn't expect. It's probably because you're allowing yourself to draw very creatively, which is great, and that can sometimes give you your best work. But you got to relate that to being able to do that almost as well when somebody tells you what to draw, tells you what to create, and that's where it changes a lot. I learned that in storyboards. I felt like I was so good and I could draw whatever I want. Everybody tells me my art's so awesome. Thanks everybody, thanks Ma. But then I had to go into storyboards and I start get these scripts thrown at me, and not even that changes quickly on the fly, like deadlines, right? And it puts you into your place. It makes you realize, wow, I'm not as good as I thought, and I got to get better. I got to get faster. I got to think creatively and on my feet. And they're going to make me change something, and you attach all this worry to it. It was a nightmare, but I did it for, a year or so, almost 2, but year and a half, somewhere in there. And it was a great learning experience, but it made me realize it's a lot tougher than people think. So you really do want to do that before you get into those kind of ball games. You want to practice now and subject yourself to that kind of experience before you get into having to draw a book for a deadline and things like that. So that's why I always tell people to time their work, draw stuff and then time yourself. See how long it takes you to pencil, how long it takes you to ink, how long it takes you to color, so that you'll know if you should even be doing that, or if you should be having somebody else handle that part for you. Yeah, so I'm going to bring this to a close, and thanks everybody. I can't believe we just did a stream for almost 2 hours. That's nuts. I usually only go about an hour, a little over. But it was a good time. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I hope you gained something from this, and make sure that you share it, comment. Let me know what you want to see in the future so that I can, jump into these things with a good set of ideas. I'll make sure to get some of the videos on the goodness, on my list of things to do. I'll get them done. I'll get some videos out for you for the ones we talked about in this stream. So we talked about some gesture drawing. One person asked about connecting heads to the torso. So I'll try to create some videos surrounding those topics. Again, I really appreciate you guys supporting this channel. It allows me to do what I love to do, and I can't thank you enough, because without you, I wouldn't be doing what you just saw today, and that's drawing comics, which I love to do. So thanks so much. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. As always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and bye for now.